midnight screams.
Hello, my name is... Let's try that again. My name is... Okay, my name is irrelevant. Not that you'd remember it if you did read it, or even if I told you in person. It's an effect of my condition. I've had years to get used to it, but I still sometimes forget the restrictions on my life. Restrictions, and a strange kind of freedom that comes with them. But before we talk about where I am now, let me tell you how it all began. I love Google. Through it, I have the knowledge, if the world, at my fingertips. All of the information accumulated by humanity can be found if you know how to use it. Want to know how to bake some delicious chocolate chip cookies? Google it. Want to learn an ancient ritual for summoning the spirits of the dead? Google it. Want to find me, my name, or any evidence that I really exist? Don't bother. No. I'm not a secret government agent who had his presence on the web meticulously scrubbed by geniuses for my own protection. And no, I didn't do it myself or have it done for me due to any affiliation with a criminal organization. It was done involuntarily and, near as I can tell, irreversibly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Google used to love me back. For years, my website was one of the most trafficked in the world. It was on the first page of search results whenever people were looking for information about controversial topics. Science, religion, politics, and history were my forte. If there was strong disagreement or conspiracy theories surrounding a topic, my website was a top-tier source of information, and people used it in numbers comparable to any 3 mainstream news outlets combined. When there was a story on my site, it would be shared widely through social media and linked to hundreds, sometimes thousands of smaller sites that would use mine as a primary source of information. It was beautiful, magnificent even. I was trusted by all the right people, and I was proud to bursting of what I had accomplished. I was in the elite of the internet, the virtual version of being a champion Olympic athlete, and it was full of crap. I was a troll extraordinaire. I gave the world bad information. I did it on purpose. I reveled in the social chaos that was the result of my magnificent prank on the gullible and ignorant masses searching for confirmation bias and validation of their mistaken or groundless beliefs. I gave them what they wanted. I fed it to them like a parent spooning from a jar into the mouth of a hungry, ever so trusting baby. In exchange, I gained money and fame in equally generous amounts. The great scam artists of history, P. T. Barnum, Charles Ponzi, and their ilk, would have envied me if they were alive today. Do you remember how huge the story of Hillary Clinton being outed as a lesbian who lets her husband go tomcatting around so she can fulfill true carnal desires was back in the 2008 Democratic presidential primary? No, of course you don't. It was one of my stories. An extraordinary hoax, complete with faked photos that cratered her poll numbers and moved the DNC to use their superdelegates to pave the way for the first interracial American president. And it's as if I never existed. Sure, the effect it had on the world remains intact, but nobody remembers the real reason why. It's as though there is a collective delusion to fill in the blank space where my work once held full credit, and all that remains are rumors of her closeted homosexuality among her political enemies. Perhaps you're familiar with the 9/11 Truth Movement. I didn't start that one, so you should remember it just fine. Thing is, I'm the one who gave it legs. I was searching the internet for stories for my site. I needed one with enough backing to be believable, but also so unlikely to be true that I could use it to play with people's heads, and I came across this obscure gem, a conspiracy that the US government took down that World Trade Center itself and blamed terrorists so it could start a war for oil that it never claimed as the spoils of war. It was pure gold. Many people credit Alex Jones with popularizing this conspiracy theory. Well, he first learned about it from me. Not that he remembers. We were buddies back then. Like me, he never met a crazy conspiracy he didn't like. Unlike me, he actually believed them then, and he believes them now. I mean, seriously. The government is poisoning the water to make the frogs gay? How funny is that? We had so much fun together. I miss him. So how it is then that you have no idea who I am? Google has been working to improve the reliability of its search results practically from the day it launched. Their product may be you, and everything you think is private, so that they can sell your life to advertisers. But the lure that gets you to willingly give it to them is all that sweet free information in an easy-to-use, convenient, and reliable search engine that gives you exactly what you want. Chief among them being good, reliable information. My website represented the exact opposite of this ideal. Hucksterism was my game, and deceit was my trade. And business was good. Nowadays, making money on a website can be challenging. The price of advertising is lower than it used to be, and people are less prone to clicking those ads. That's where the real money is. You might get a pittance for eyes on, but it's click-throughs that really get you paid. Back when I started, the money flowed like water. If you had a popular website, you could go from a nobody to a millionaire with 300 employees in just a few years if you played your cards right. I never hired anyone. That meant that I was basically chained to my computer every waking hour, but it also meant that I got to keep all of the money I made for myself. Well, after Uncle Sam swooped in to take a grossly unfair portion of the fruits of my labors. Seriously, in what world is it fair to spend 3 to 6 months of your life every year working for free because some government goon is taking your money from you at gunpoint? How is that different from slave labor? But I digress. The point is, I was a one-man operation. Nobody was tied to my business but me. So don't go around trying to figure out if that money I used to have is still tied to my business in any way. I assure you that it is not. I honestly have no idea what happened to my money. Where do millions of dollars go when they don't belong to anyone? Perhaps Google took it. Maybe it was simply sucked into the infinitely hungry black money hole that is the federal government. Maybe it was simply deleted from existence. Our money is mostly digital these days anyway. Erase the bank account. Erase the money. Regardless, my fortune vanished without a trace. Every penny earned over years of endless work gone in the blink of an eye. Google was a multiplied blessing for me. It served both as my primary means of gathering information and as my primary means of spreading my own brand of misinformation. That said, if something isn't on Google, not just buried and hard to locate, but genuinely missing entirely, does it really exist at all? If all of the information in the world, all of the known information, study, events, and general information of human history is online and searchable through Google, what does it mean if it can't be found? And, relevant to my one story, what does it mean that I can't be found? It all happened in an instant, in one of those moments that should be entirely unremarkable, and, in this case, ironically forgettable. Forgettable for you, but never for me. I sat down at my computer one morning, logged in, and opened Google so I could check for anything useful may have come up while I slept. I had every expectation that the same thing would happen that day as had happened every single day for years. It should have perfectly and satisfyingly ordinary, with another day of bland but happy research, writing, and posting wonderfully deceptive stories for the hungry, gullible masses. Imagine my surprise then when I opened up my Google homepage and was greeted with the following message: "You have been deleted for intentionally spreading false and misleading information." What? I muttered, mouth agape in confusion and surprise. This isn't April 1st. What kind of joke is this? I navigated to my website to log in and do a little work, only to be greeted by the non-existent domain error message. Can't reach that page? Odd. Let me Google it. So I did. I Googled my own website, and the search result was fruitless. No matter how I searched, no matter my search terms, I got no results that included my own website, and often I got no results at all. I searched myself and found other randos with the same name, but not the most famous one, me. Frustrated, I went to Twitter to complain to my legions of followers. Every login attempt just got me the failed login. Username and password do not match message. I searched my account name without logging in, and there were no results to be found. I went to Facebook with the exact same result. I tried to log into my various email accounts, and they all failed the same way. I attempted to recover my accounts with my usernames and a password reset link texted to my phone, but they all had the same result: incorrect username. I broadened my search for anything I could still log into. World of Warcraft? Gone. Amazon? Gone. YouTube? Gone. Bank accounts, utilities, online subscriptions, credit card accounts, and anything that I could normally access online? Gone. 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 And oh so gone. I ran a virus scan on all of my devices, and they came back clean. I repeated the scan with 3 additional antivirus programs, and all came back clean as well. I restarted my computers, phone, and every other net-connected device I owned. When that failed, I tried resetting my computer only to be completely unable to properly set it up again, due to, you guessed it, no Microsoft account. Son of a bitch! I screamed impotently as my computer rejected my login credentials. I pulled out my cell phone to call customer support, dialed the number swiftly and surely, my fingers stabbing the screen with quick, angry jabs. I put the phone to my ear and nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not even a lousy, "This phone number is no longer in service" recording, just plain nothing. I tried to open some apps to see if the phone had anything actually working. They all opened, but they all had forgotten me and had asked me to set up a new user account. Damn it. I shrieked as I violently hurled my very expensive iPhone into my equally expensive oversized Ultra HD monitor. They both broke gloriously, bits and pieces flying off in random directions as I growled impatiently through gritted teeth. "This is crap," I angrily declared to nobody after I regained a modicum of composure. "I'm going to the library. Maybe I can get some work done from their computers while I get this sorted out." I got dressed. Yes, I actually did do most of my work in my underwear and a bathrobe. Yes, I knew it made me a living stereotype, but I was too rich and influential to care. Who was going to see me anyway? I worked alone out of my home office. I grabbed my wallet and keys and hurried out my front door. My next-door neighbor happened to be taking out his trash at the same time. "Good morning, Jim," I hurriedly greeted as I rushed to my car. I didn't fully comprehend his response at the time. My mind was wholly preoccupied by my mysterious computer problems. He gave me a confused look, cocking his head to one side and saying nothing as he hesitantly raised his free and gave me a half-hearted wave. "Hello." I slid into the driver's seat and slammed the car door shut. I swear, when I find out who's responsible for messing up my computer like this, he's a dead man, I groused as I keyed the ignition. The engine roared to life, and the sound of the powerful motor soothed me slightly. I love my car, and I tried several times to describe it here for you, but apparently that would give you enough information to identify me. So just trust me when I tell you that you'd love to have a car like mine. Sadly, it seems that the page simply will not allow me to commit something that could allow people to pick me out in a crowd to print. Hence, I am reduced to speaking in generalities rather the details of my gorgeous, crazy fast, super sexy car for you, so you could form the proper mental picture of this enviable machine. As it is, just imagine whatever car you think is gorgeous, super sexy, and crazy fast. You might even manage to picture mine. I slammed the car in reverse, zipped out into the street without bothering to look. Yes, I know I could have killed someone, but at the moment, I didn't really care. Once on the road, I slammed the car in gear, floored the gas, and sped down the street like a 2-ton bullet. Yes, I was driving recklessly, and I didn't care. Have you ever been so thoroughly pissed off that you were fine with endangering other people and yourself in your fit of foolish rage? That was me. My world had just been upended, so I honestly didn't care if I upended someone else's world. Misery does love company after all. I roared into the library parking lot in a third of the time it should have taken me to arrive, and came to a screeching stop in the handicapped space. Spaces, actually. I double parked. I was going too fast to fully stop in time, and I took out the handicap sign and put a decent dent in the bumper of my year, make, and model I can't tell you super expensive sports car. The minor miracle of having broken almost every traffic law, including speeding, running stop signs, running red, lights, failure to yield, illegal passing on the right, illegal passing in a no-passing zone, and reckless driving without once encountering a cop in the 8-mile drive barely registered in my mind. I fixed my furious glare on the library doors and huffed like an angry bull. I held no appreciation for libraries at the time. They are increasingly obsolete relics of an age from before the internet. Put all that every library in the world contains, and more into our homes, and even into our pockets as smartphones improved. I saw them as enclaves for the old, the poor, and the technologically illiterate. The library was a large, sprawling, 2-story affair with blocky construction and lots of windows on such a large lot of land that the utter lack of a useful public space, like a playground, public pool, athletic fields, or all three, since it had, the space was utterly appalling to me. Seriously, if my taxes are being used to maintain the property, the least the people spending my money could do is get the most bang for my buck. I stalked up the sidewalk, violently threw open the glass double doors, and angrily marched up to the librarian. "I need to use a computer," I growled. My demeanor hardly seemed to faze her. A plump, mousy woman in her 50s with long black hair streaked with gray, or rather, gray hair streaked with black. She merely arched one thin eyebrow at me and said, "Okay, let me see your library card." "My library card?" I responded incredulously. "Lady, I haven't been to a library since the last time my mom took me as a kid. I'm only here because my computer got hit with the nastiest, sneakiest virus I've ever seen, and I desperately need to get online so I can handle some business and get my remote service guy to clean up Moo PC before I get home." "No problem," she said, with absolutely no concern whatsoever for the massive info dump I just inflicted upon her. "Just fill out this form and I'll get you a card in just a few minutes, and then you can use the computer. Just stay off those porn sites, unless you want to give our computers the same virus yours has. Also, it will get your computer privileges permanently revoked." She slid a stack of 3 blank forms and a pen across the desk to me. "We're not too busy right now, so you can go ahead and fill the application out right here." She turned away and did whatever it is that bored librarians do on her computer while I filled out the forms. "Done," I declared after a couple minutes of furiously jotting down the required information. "Can we please hurry?" I asked as I handed her the completed forms. "This won't take long," she promised. She checked the forms, and a confused, annoyed expression clouded her features. "Is this a joke?" she demanded as she handed the papers back to me. "These forms are blank." "Bullshit," I replied, annoyed at her sick sense of humor. "I just filled them out. You saw me do it." I looked down at the forms in my hands. To my utter surprise, the top form was completely blank, as if I had never touched pen to paper. I frantically spread them all out on the desk so I could see them all at once. They were all blank. "That's," I stammered. Surprising. I could have sworn. I'm sure whatever. I'll do it again." "Do you need help filling them out?" she asked, with a tone that practically screamed. "Say yes and prove you're a moron. Come on, do it." "No," I murmured. "Just give me a few minutes." Had I really made some incredibly stupid mistake in my haste? I checked my pen. The ballpoint was retracted, but I was sure I had had it out while I was filling out the forms. I was sure I'd had it out while I was writing. I was sure that I saw ink flowing across the page as I worked. I was severely stressed. Was it possible that I never even had the point out and just scratched blank lines of nothing on the pages? Yes, that had to be it. I clicked the top of the pen slowly and deliberately. The point came out and stuck firmly in place with a satisfying click. I put the pen to paper and took a few test strokes by slowly writing down my first name. Black ink flowed out onto the page, and my name appeared on the white paper in solid black lines. I continued this way all the way through to the end. "Okay, done," I declared as I drew the final letter on the final page. "Now can I please get my library card so I can use the computer?" The librarian picked up the forms, looked at them, then set them down and fixed me with an angry glare. "This isn't funny, young man," she scolded. "Now get out of here and take whatever is recording this lame prank with you." "What?" I asked, confused. "This?" she snapped, as she forcefully thrust the papers back at me and shook them under my nose before shoving them into my hands. I looked at the newly crumpled papers, and my eyes grew wide with shock. "This can't be," I mouthed breathlessly. The pages were blank. Every line that I had just filled out in heavy block lettering was as clean and white as newly fallen snow. There weren't even the impressions that pressing my pen into the paper should have left, even if I hadn't clearly seen the black ink pour out and affix itself to the paper as I wrote. "This can't be," I repeated. "It makes no sense." "Oh, it makes perfect sense," the librarian retorted. "You're screwing with me, and it's not funny. Now get out." "Look, I'm not a crier. I didn't cry when Old Yeller died. I didn't cry at the end of Where the Red Fern Grows. I didn't even cry when my own pets died. Not ever, including as a kid. My parents are alive and well, as is my brother, and I was never close to our extended family, so I had never felt loss on that level. But just then, looking at those forms, I broke down. "What are you doing?" The librarian went from angry to concerned the moment I shed my first tear. "I don't get it," I blubbered. "All I want to do is check the internet, and I can't even fill these forms out. What's wrong with me? What's happening to me?" The librarian looked like she genuinely felt my pain. Women are amazing that way, able to feel others' emotions almost as if they were their own. It's called empathy, and they have it in buckets. "Tell you what," she said tenderly, "I'll log you in with my credentials. Do you promise not to access any porn, drug, or anything that's against our use policy?" "Yes," I nodded, rubbing my eyes dry with the back of my hand. "I really do need to look a few things up. I promise it's all safe for work." She led me to the computer lab and logged me in as a guest under her credentials. I thanked her profusely, sat down, and got to work. I checked my website. Gone. I checked my social media. Gone. I checked my email addresses and commerce accounts. All gone. Then I looked myself up using every combination of data points that I could think of. I was famous. I was in the news. I was practically a household name. Nothing. Defeated, I logged out of the computer and pushed my chair away from the little cubicle. I was emotionally exhausted, without the energy to be even a little mad anymore. My head hung low. I waved dejectedly at the librarian on my way out and thanked her again on my way out. She gave a confused look and asked, "Thanks? For what?" I shook my head, taking a moment to appreciate her humility that made he see the great favor she did for me as nothing. Then I turned around and dejectedly walked out the door and to my car. There was a parking ticket on my windshield. I didn't care. I left it where it was as I unlocked the doors, got in, and fired up the engine. I slumped in my seat, leaned my head back, and sighed heavily, not knowing what was happening or why. All I knew was that my life as I knew was almost certainly over, taken from me as surely as if I had never existed, and I had no idea how I was going to get it back. Heading home, I was just as dangerous behind the wheel as I had been going to the library, but in a different way. Where once I had been angry and aggressive, now I was distracted and depressed. So, of course, I ran a stop sign. I was barely through the intersection when the cop car on the cross street pulled out behind me and lit up like a child's toy. What else could I do? I was fairly caught, so I pulled over. "License and registration," the cop said in a firm but bored tone of voice. "Okay, officer," I replied humbly. I reached into the glove box and pulled out the envelope that held my insurance and car registration and handed it to the office before taking out my wallet. What the? I gasped when I saw the empty space where my driver's license always resided. I showed the policeman my deficient wallet and pointed at the empty window slot. I'm sorry, I don't seem to have my license right now. I honestly don't know where it could be. Wait here, the officer firmly ordered before returning to his squad car. After what felt like an eternity, the officer returned, and this time I noticed that he had his hand on the hilt of his gun and the holster was unbuckled. "Get out of the car," he barked. I was confused. "Excuse me? What?" I blurted. "Get out of the car now," he repeated. Truly clueless about the situation, I did as ordered, then asked, "Okay, why?" "Now turn and place your hands on the hood of the vehicle," he interrupted. Again, I did as I was told. Nobody can ever say that my parents didn't teach me to respect officers of the law, or the fact that resisting them is a great way to get beaten or shot. The officer frisked me, found nothing, then handcuffed me. "The envelope you handed me was empty. I ran your plates, and they aren't on file, which makes them ghost plates. This vehicle also matches the description of one stolen from the dealership 18 months ago, and I'm betting that the VIN on this car is a match for the stolen one." "There must be some mistake," I protested. "I bought this car with cash. Well, a check, so that there would be a paper trail to prove the purchase. But I paid for it." "Save it for the judge," he mocked. "I've heard that one before." I was roughly shoved into the back seat of the squad car. I watched and listened as the officer relayed the vehicle identification number to the precinct and waited entirely too long for the results. "It's a match," came the reply. The voice was female, but in no way sexy. It sounded like she'd been smoking razor blades without a filter for the last 30 years. What came next was every cop show cliché that ever existed. I was arrested, read my rights, booked, fingerprinted, mugshot, charged, and tossed into a communal jail cell with a bunch of petty criminals, addicts, and at least one homeless man in desperate need of a very long, very hot shower. The worst part was the body cavity search. If I had to get a gloved finger up my rear, the least they could have done was have a good-looking woman do it, rather than the ham-fisted brute of a man. I was left waiting in there forever. Nobody fetched me for interrogation. No lawyer came to represent me. It was as if the police simply forgot I existed. I'd never been to jail before. Hell, I'd never even seen the inside of a police station before. My entire image of jail was formed by television and movies. I fully expected to be surrounded by dozens of nefarious criminals who all, though that I had a purty mouth. Not true. The real dangerous ones were segregated from the ordinary criminals, and I was with a pretty chill group. Sure, some of them looked rough, and there was the homeless man who smelled like he hadn't had a shower in a decade. But most were just ordinary people you wouldn't look twice at if you saw them on the street, who may or may not have done something illegal and were just waiting for bail. And more than a few of them were actually pretty cool. The hours passed. People came and went. Then lunchtime arrived. "Chow time, jailbirds!" A young male officer with brown hair and impeccable grooming called out as he rolled a cart filled with bagged lunches into the hallway. The bags were numbered by cell, and there were exactly as many meals as there were inmates in that cell. All was well until he got to my cell. Never having been locked up before, and more preoccupied with the mystery of my car falsely coming up as stolen on top of my online existence, vanishing without a trace, I found myself at the back of the line. When it was my turn to get my food, the officer gave me a puzzled look. "I'm sorry," he apologized. "It looks like we miscounted the meals. I'll fetch you a meal as soon as I'm done passing the rest of these out." "Okay," I sighed in frustration. What's one more inconvenience in a disaster of a day like this anyway? I sat down on the bench nearest the cell door and waited as everyone else in the cell block got their food. "I'll be right back," the officer promised as he wheeled the empty cart past my cell. I gave him an insincere smile and a half-hearted wave as he exited the cell block and waited for him to come back with my lunch. And waited, and waited, and waited. "What the hell?" I grumbled after an hour had passed. "That damn cop lied to me." My stomach gurgled loudly as if to punctuate my irritated claim. The homeless man approached me on unsteady feet. Holding out his brown bag, he said, "Talk this." I didn't finish mine. I was genuinely shocked by the offer. "I can't," I began to protest. He cut me off. "I know what it's like to be ignored, forgotten, and hungry. Please, take it." "Thank you," I said as I gratefully took the food, no longer caring about the stench that enveloped him like a billowing cloak. Say what you will about the homeless. Dismiss them as drunks, druggies, and lunatics if you want to, but they have enormous empathy for the suffering of others. There's something about life being genuinely hard, even out of control, that instills this in them. Most of them will give you the shirt off their back, while someone who's fully self-absorbed in their comparatively minor problems as they fail to appreciate their comfy little world will walk right on by without so much as looking at you. That's why I go out my way to be good to the homeless as opposed to the normies who I, genuinely don't care for anymore. We spoke while I ate, and long after until dinner time. I told him my story, and he seemed to believe me with some obvious effort. He told me his story too. I'll call him Tom here. That's not his real name, but if I did violate his privacy, he wouldn't remember me anyway. So Tom it is. He was an Iraq War veteran. Before that, he was happy. He was physically and mentally strong. He had a master's degree in accounting and joined the army as an infantry officer to get his student loans repaid. He discovered that he loved the military and resolved to stay in beyond his initial 6-year commitment. He married a beautiful woman. He made captain in just 3 years. Then the war started. You all know how it went at first. The nation was reeling and out for blood, justifiably so, but in our zealous desire for revenge, we made mistakes. It would be easy to blame the politicians for everything, but the truth is that they only did what the voters demanded of them, and many who resisted paid for it with their careers. That's the bargain you make to be in politics after all. Tom's unit was deployed to Afghanistan, where all went reasonably well, all things considered at the time. Then they were redeployed to Iraq instead of coming home when their tour was over. The fighting was easy at first, then became interminable and sneaky as the local zealots, with foreign backing and support, decided to start an insurgency that kept us bogged in that quagmire for far too long. Insurgents caused many casualties in his unit, and as his deployment got extended many times, The stress, pain, and losses of a prolonged war got to him. The final straw was when he finally returned home, a major's leave freshly pinned on his collar, only to discover that his wife, that he hadn't seen for over 2 years, was pregnant with a 6-month-old baby in her arms. Obviously, neither child was his, and she had divorce papers waiting for him to sign on the kitchen table. Broken, he signed them without reading them, went to the drugstore, bought a toxic mix of over-the-counter drugs, and downed them all right in front of the cashier. Naturally, she called 911. He got medical intervention, stomach pumped and all. Then he spent a month involuntarily committed to a mental hospital. Once he was released, he reported to his commander only to find that he was being discharged for mental health with a disability rating for severe PTSD. That was the end of his life as he knew it. He began to disregard himself as he spent his entire VA check on booze every month. He ended up homeless, broken, and abandoned with nothing but a few taxpayer dollars every month and a bottle of liquor to keep him company. His story still breaks my heart. What's left of it anyway? Tom, if you're reading this and recognize your story, I genuinely hope that you got the help you need and have been able to rebuild your life. You deserve happiness. Rebuilding my own life has proved to be impossible. Dinner came, and the same officer who forgot to bring my lunch was serving dinner. "You jerk," I yelled when I saw him. "You promised you'd bring me lunch, then left me to starve." The officer scowled at me. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "Don't play stupid with me." I shrieked. "This is police brutality, or prisoner neglect, or whatever that crime is called." The officer spoke into his radio. "We have a disruptive prisoner in cell 3, he said in an official tone. Looking right at me, he stated, "I've never seen this guy before." That set off my cellmates. They all started talking over each other as they verified my side of the story. They accused him of tormenting prisoners for fun. One called him a racist, even thought the cop's skin color is as white as mine. I guess telling you my race is general enough. It's not like anyone can pick me out of lineup with that info after all. Still, I'm mildly surprised that I'm allowed to tell you even that much about me. Several other cops showed up brandishing batons and tasers. They barked orders at us, and everyone backed away from the bars before one keyed the door and opened it. 2 large officers manhandled and cuffed me before dragging me out of the cell. The one with the keys closed the door and locked it behind us. "Who is this guy anyway?" the cop with a meal cart asked as I was being hauled away. "No idea," replied one of my escorts, a fit, compact woman with bleached blonde hair. "Nobody remembers bringing him in. Booking is looking him up now." "I want a lawyer," I demanded. "This is bullshit. Give me a lawyer." My police escort ignored my protests as they dragged me to an interrogation room and unceremoniously dumped me into the chair. The lady cop's radio crackled. "We can't find a record on this guy. His file must have been misplaced. No idea why he's not in the computer either. You wait here while we find your file," the lady cop ordered. "Don't go forgetting." "About me," I replied sarcastically. "And where's my damn dinner? You get fed when we know who you are and why you're here," she snapped back. I laughed. "My name is..." I told her my name. I can speak it freely even if it won't take to print, no matter how many times I type it out. "And I'm here because one of you idiot cops accused me of stealing my own car that I paid for in full." I glared at them both. "Now can I go home?" Or are we going to play the bureaucracy game? One of the male cops glared back at me. We're going to find your file and ID you before we do anything. We never take a perp at his word. We're not stupid. They both left the room and closed it over my loud stream of vile invectives. I'd never had a problem with the cops before. They do perform a vital service, even if they do it imperfectly, but everything about that situation was bullshit. I was rightfully pissed, and I felt justified showing it. I kept yelling at the closed door for a while before giving up. I looked around the room. It was bare and sterile, with one table and 2 chairs placed on either side of it. There was a one-way mirror in the wall, a door, and a camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. The red recording light was not on. I assume that's because they only use it during active interrogations. I settled in and waited for the cops to return with my file and my dinner, and waited and waited and waited for hours upon hours. Being all alone with nothing but your own thoughts can be a good thing. Hell, it can be downright therapeutic, giving you a chance to work through your troubles or clear your mind so you can focus on a creative task or puzzle. It's not a good thing when you're enraged and obsessed. In that case, you ruminate, marinating in a vicious circle of negativity that leaves you stewing over your situation until you can't take it anymore and you explode. I think you know which one of these cases describes mine. This is bullshit, I screamed at the top of my lungs, violently rising to my feet, banging my knees against the table in the process. I wheeled around and kicked the chair away from me with all my rage. It flew across the small room and banged against the wall. The pain in my shin assured me that my outburst would leave me with a nasty bruise to remember it by. I pounded on the door with both of my cuffed fists. "Let me out of here, you bastards!" I screamed. "I've been stuck in here all night. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I need to pee, damn it." There was no response, but I didn't give up. I kept pounding on the door and screaming. It felt like I was at it forever. My fists were bruised. My voice went hoarse. Finally, someone opened the door. It was the lady officer who had been part of my escort to this damnable pit. "It's about damn time," I spat. "How could you stick me in here and just abandon me like that?" Next thing I knew, I felt a massive jolt of electricity surge into my body, and I went to the floor in a twitching heap. The lady cop keyed her radio on. "This is Officer Valdez," she said in an official tone. "Someone's in interrogation room too. I had to subdue him. This room is supposed to be empty. Do we have an ID on someone being put in here?" "Negative," came the reply. "That room hasn't been used since the double homicide last week." "Then who is the prisoner in it right now?" she asked her radio. "You bitch," I managed to spit out. "You tossed my ass in here yourself." She looked at me with pure scorn. "No," she replied coldly. "I'd remember you if I had.